Hey everybody, Zee Garcia here, and today we're taking a look at a two-player dueling game with magic called Riftforce. In this game, each player is going to have four different guilds, four different factions, and you're going to draft those at the beginning, shuffle them up, and then you are going to play a head-to-head game trying to control 5 different areas and then utilize the special abilities of your characters, of the guilds you drafted, in order to destroy the cards opposite you. You are trying to gain Riftforce, and whoever makes it up to 12 points, 12 of those Riftforce points first, is going to win the game. So it's a pretty straightforward game. The powers are explained on a card right in front of you, so it's not a hard game to internalize. Let's go ahead and take a look at how this all comes together, and I'll see you on the other side. At the beginning of the game, the players are going to draft 4 of these guilds each, and you're going to take all the corresponding cards for those guilds, you're going to shuffle them into a deck of cards, and you're going to deal yourself a hand of 7 cards. The player who is second, in this case that side of the table, flips over 1 card and adds it to the center of these 5 battlefields, which is what we're fighting over, and then you're ready to begin. So I'll be first, and on my turn I'm going to take 1 action, and we'll go back and forth until someone gets to 12 of these victory points here, and then whoever has the most points at the end of the game is going to be the winner, okay? So on your turn, you do one of 3 things. You can do a play action, an activate action, or the check and draw action, okay? When you do a play, you can play up to 3 cards, elementals, from your hand. You can play 3 that are the same type. So I could play these 3 here, or I could play 3 that are the same number. So I could play these 3 here. And when you play them either all to the same location or to 3 adjacent locations. So I could do there, and there, for example. All right, so that's play. The next one is activate, in which you discard a card from your hand. So again, let's say I did that, like so. The activate action, this one right here, you are going to discard a card from your hand and then activate up to 3 cards that are the same type. So I could discard this and activate that one. Or I could discard one and activate the same number. So if I had a 7, I could discard the 7 and activate all 3 of these. So that's activate, very simple. And then the final one, which is check and draw. Check means you're going to look at all these different locations, the different battlefields. For every one of them where you have something on your side and your opponent has nothing on their side, you gain 1 Riftforce. And then you draw back up to 7. That's it. There's 2 ways in which you're going to win these Riftforce points. By doing the check and draw and not being opposed somewhere, or by knocking out one of the creatures across from you, okay, on your opponent's side. There's a couple of other ways in which you might be able to gain more than 1 Riftforce for something, but those are based on the different guilds here. So that's pretty much it. What do the guilds do? Well, when you activate them during that action B, activate, they usually do some damage to the first character across from them. So if your opponent has multiple things at a location, you usually deal damage to the first one until it has enough damage on it with these tokens that you have knocked it out, and you are going to earn 1 Riftforce for doing that. Again, usually that's the way it works out. And so that's what you're doing in the game. Playing these cards out, discarding them to activate cards on the table, dealing damage. And they're going to be basically kind of thematic things having to do with the elements. So the fire, for example, this one right here, is going to deal 3 damage to the first enemy at this location, and then it does 1 damage to the ally behind it. So you want to be careful with these. If I have one there, and there's something there, and I activate the fire, I am going to deal 3 here, 1 to the one right behind it. You've got here the thunderbolt ones. It does 2 damage to an enemy, to any enemy at that location. And if it destroys that enemy, then lightning strikes again, and you repeat that effect immediately. We've got here the light. It deals 2 damage to the first enemy at the location, but then you heal 1 from that character being activated or any other ally you've got. The shadow one's going to be like a rogue. You're going to move it to another location, deal 1 damage. to the first enemy at that location. But if this hit kills that thing, then you gain +1 Rift Force. So again, they kind of have a certain feel. The water flows from one place to another. The green one here is like vines. It grabs something and drags it over to you. That kind of thing. You're going to continue playing until somebody has 12, like I said. You have equal turns. At the end of the game, whoever has the most Rift Force is going to be the winner of the game. So that is Riftforce. Let's go ahead and talk about it, shall we? Overall, I think this is a pretty neat game. It's not revolutionary, and there are a lot of magic-y dueling kinds of games, but this one tackles it in a somewhat different game. It kind of feels like the classic battle line game, where you are fighting over, spots on the table, trying to make sure that you are unopposed somewhere, so that you can do that check and draw action and get, sneak in some of those Rift Force points. So generally, I like it. There's a couple of things I don't like as much, and I'll talk about those first. So, first one, the theme. I think the theme is a little generic, okay? But I do think that they did a nice job tying the powers thematically to what they do, right? So like I said in the video, the shadow is sort of sneaky, the fire is very potent but dangerous. So things like that. I like that idea of it, that aspect of it. But the theme and the trappings are have a very lived-in feel. And then the other thing is the tactics and the luck. The game does get a little bit samey. Most of the factions are do 2 damage, do 3 damage, and then maybe a little sprinkling of theme on top of that, right? So it becomes a real sort of tit-for-tat kind of game in which, I smack you for 2, you smack me back for 2. I put out a guy, you smack him for 2. I smack you for 3. It becomes that. It becomes a little samey that way. Everything else I do enjoy. I think the aesthetics here are great. High-quality cards, great artwork. The tokens are a little on the cheap side. Not great, but they need to be small to fit on these cards. So I understand why they are the way they are. And the whole thing is very captivating, looks lovely. The replay value is good. You're going to discover new interactions based on which ones you ended up drafting. And there are 10 decks. So there's 2 that are always not even used. So a lot of replayability there. The game arc feels pretty good. There's a nice amount of rising tension. One player maybe pulls ahead 2, 3 points. The other player claws back up and catches them. Comes down to being within striking distance for both players. So at the end, you're sort of, figuring out if you're going to be able to be the one to deal the killing blow or make that check and win. I like that. And then lastly, the ease of play. The game is surprisingly smooth and easy. It's very well explained. Having the card in front of you that tells you what the power is, instead of on every card of that type, works out very nicely, and it makes the game language independent because they're printed English on one side and German on the other. So you just need to print those double-sided, but the deck of cards can be language independent. And so again, that works out well. And you can easily make this fit other languages by simply having the player aid text be in another language. And then you can play with that deck of cards. There's no language in it. So there you go. Overall, like I said, a nice game. Perhaps a little samey, perhaps a little flat when it comes to the interest of fighting back and forth, the tactics, and what's going on. But I liked it. So this one's going to get from me a 7.5 out of 10, which means it gets a seal of approval. I would recommend it if you're looking for a head-to-head dueling sort of game, but one that isn't the usual kind of thing where there's a bunch of different effects on cards that you need to learn and familiarize yourself with. You need to know, what each faction does mildly, and you're good to go. Very easy. So again, 7.5 out of 10 from me for Riftforce. And that's going to do it, everybody. My name is Zee Garcia. I'll see you on the next one.